People moving here, should they be afraid of bugs?
Biggest mistake people moving to Oahu make concerning pest control.
Roaches, ticks, fleas, mosquitoes, termites are a big thing in Hawaii. We actually have scorpions. You can find centipedes on accident in your house. Do you have any horror stories?
There was a literal outline of blood on the floor of his body. Everywhere you walk was just crunch, crunch. As butt muscles, legs have all these spiky hairs. There's nothing more gross than dealing with a bug that's a true human parasite that only eats blood.
This is not my favorite topic. Okay guys, this is Derek Okahashi with Moving to Oahu. Welcome back to another video. I'm here with Ian from Pest Tech Hawaii. Ian is my favorite pest control expert on the island. Ian is going to share a couple of horror stories. I almost couldn't sit through these stories. We're going to share our horror stories. We're going to share my funny story. We're going to answer all the questions you have, so stay tuned. Let's start with roaches. There's a difference between the big ones and the little ones, right? So in Hawaii, we have the big ones, the American cockroaches, and we have the little German cockroaches. Correct me if I'm wrong, the American ones, the big ones that are the scariest to me still, but they're from outside, right? They only come in if you leave the door, they maybe accidentally come in. The Germans, the little brown ones, are the reproducing ones that infest, and they only live indoors, right?
Correct. So American roaches are referred to as periodomestic roaches, or domestic sometimes, inside the house. Generally speaking, they live outside, but they will make their way inside.
And stay there?
They'll stay there long enough to scare you. Every once and again, especially on a very humid night, they'll fly in when they start moving around in trees and on the outside.
Do they go towards the light?
I think they go towards fear. Or if you really don't like them, they'll come find you.
Are you serious? No.
I don't like American roaches either. And when they're flying around, man, I'm heading for cover because they know I don't like them. They like dark, damp places.
Dark and damp.
Watch out when it rains a lot, because when it rains a lot, they like damp, not flooded areas. And so the areas that they might be nesting outside, they'll flood and they'll go fly and go find drier ground. Generally speaking, when they're flying around into your house, it's either by accident or they're just looking for dry ground because it's too wet or it's humid out.
So I can flood my house. Don't do that. You have a degree in etymology, or?
I'm a certified entomologist as recognized by the Entomological Society of America. Technically, I'm an ACE, so Associate Certified Entomologist.
And there aren't many of those on the island, right?
There aren't many. You know, there might be one or two of us on the island.
This isn't a promo, this is YouTube talking, but it's a reason why I really liked Ian, because we weren't just spraying, you know, we're just going to Home Depot and pumping stuff and spraying. And with those, there are certain sprays that keep them away from your house, right?
There are treatments that you can do on the exterior of your property to knock down populations, or at the very least, as they walk or crawl and try and get into your house, they'll come across one of these contact pesticides and then eventually die on their own. There are two things that pesticides hate, and it's water and sunlight. So the sun will break down pesticide molecules, and water will wash it away or water it down as well. And so some of those natural food grade, those IC10s, the essential oils that are rosemary and ginger and all of that stuff, even more so as soon as it rains or when the sun is real strong, it'll really start to break those down. And
are they safe?
it would be irresponsible to say that they're safe. If you use them responsibly in the manner that they're intended, then you can use them around your family, your children, your pets. If you use them irresponsibly or in the wrong hands,
so if you drink it, it's not safe, right?
Definitely not safe.
But if you spray, if a professional comes and sprays the appropriate amount in the appropriate areas, it's not something.
It's not something you have to worry about.
It's approved by the USDA and all those sorts of things.
It's approved by the EPA, the Hawaii Department of Ag. So yes, responsible pest controllers will use products that are designed to be used in and around your home, in and around your family. They keep you away during a period where our products can dry. Once it's dry, as long as the label allows, everybody can move right back in as if nothing ever happened. Once upon a time, I had long hair. I had gorgeous, long, waist-length hair. Like, if you look at my old high school photos, like, it was, and it wasn't the booyah style with just the long hair up here and shaved. But I remember I was in a parking lot once, and it was night, and it was humid. And I felt something hit my head. And I was like, wow, what is that? And so I did what I always do every 10 seconds to highlight my gorgeous, beautiful locks, is I brushed my hands through my hair. And it was kind of this lumpy thing as I brushed my hands through my hair. Then I felt something like pinching me down my shirt and then crawling all through my clothes, and I take off my shirt, and it's this big giant roach. So roaches, they climb upside down, right? But they climb upside down so well because their legs have all these spiky hairs, and they just kind of grab onto stuff. And that's what it was doing. It was just grabbing onto my body. It grabbed into my hair, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is disgusting. And that was when I kind of got into pests. Knew in my mind, all right, I'm going to get rid of these things one day.
That made me think of something, though. Roaches are actually very clean things, right? Is that a myth, too?
Roaches are disgusting, and here's a fact. The number one cause for asthma in among America's youth, this is across the country, is roaches. Roach dander. So roaches will shed their exoskeleton. It's full of bacteria. It crumbles up into dust, and that's what you breathe in. And so if you have a roach problem that you're not dealing with, you're doing your family an injustice by not getting rid of those things. Number one cause for asthma.
The little German cockroaches.
Yes.
I mean, people on the mainland can experience German cockroaches anywhere, right?
Yeah.
I just found that in California, like Northern California, it's kind of cooler climate. They weren't as popular, or probably weren't as common. German cockroaches, you have to kill those things a different way, right?
So German cockroaches, for pest controllers, they're like a puzzle for us. And so you can't just walk around and spray. We kind of refer to those guys as spray junkies, right? Because it's easy to go inside a house and just start spraying everything.
Yeah.
German cockroaches are generally dealt with on your hands and knees. So you slap on a pair of knee pads, you get down to where they're hiding in your cabinets, behind your refrigerator, under the dishwasher, in your drawers. But all of those things take extra work.
But when they're gone, right?
Generally speaking, once they're gone, if you do it right, they're gone.
Yeah.
Until a new infestation arrives.
And they come in cardboard and electronics most commonly?
They love corrugated cardboard. Costco, Sam's Club, wholesale shoppers that bring in boxes and boxes of stuff, they love that stuff.
Oh. So when you go to Sam's or Costco, you get those. Think twice about getting those boxes.
Ironically, though, during the pandemic, I mean, we got a lot of calls from that because people are storing up boxes of food.
Yeah.
And so now you got two things, right? You got all this nesting material in the cardboard, and then you got food just stored on top of other food. And so it's one of those problems where you see one or two today, you're going to see 20 or 30 tomorrow,
Right.
and then a couple of hundred the day after that.
Within a week, you can have hundreds, right?
Exponentially. Like German roaches compared to American roaches, if you leave a German roach problem unchecked for a week, you'll have a full-blown infestation.
On the topic of German roaches in your car.
Oh, that's it.
Dude, I just came from 3 cars yesterday that I treated.
Kenji brings up a good point. A lot of people in Hawaii get roaches in their car. My wife, if you're watching this, those Starbucks muffins, please stop leaving them in our car. Rah.
People get roaches in their car. Again, the whole Sam's Club, Costco, box store thing, you're transporting all that stuff in your car, then you eat in your car. Now you got this safe haven that's just traveling from point A to point B. It's warm, it's dark, there's food, there's crumbs, it's nooks and crannies everywhere we can't get to, but the roaches easily can. And the number one thing that people try and do that I talk to is they always try and bomb their car.
People just say,
Yeah, just bomb them. Bomb the house, bomb the car.
like, you don't just light off bombs and you have no more pest problems, right?
From a safety standpoint, since we talked about safety,
Yeah.
a bug bomb is just a liquid pesticide that you spray over everything. Your couch, your table, your dishes, everywhere that you can get. That's what these bug bombs get onto. So that's not how real pest control is done. Real pest control is surgical. It's intentional. You get to where the bugs are. You're not just indiscriminately spraying stuff, right? Okay. That's what a bug bomb does. Bug bombs, generally speaking, tend to chase things deeper into hiding.
Oh.
So if this room were full of roaches, German roaches, and I let off a bug bomb, those German roaches know what's going on.
Yeah.
They just go hide. They go hide in places that liquid aerosol pesticide can't get to.
Yeah.
Once the dust settles, they come back out, and now you got to deal with a problem that's even more hidden. And when people do that in their car, one, you're bombing your car that you're going to drive in, breathe in, touch. You're going to put your kids in there, right? And two, your car has compartments that you'll never get to. And now the roaches that were just kind of cruising around where you could easily get to and address, now you've pushed them deeper into your car. Now you got a bigger problem.
What about ants? My wife, again, she left some Lucky Charms for my kids in the van, and now we had ants. I sprayed the IC10 or whatever. I don't know much about the ant thing. This channel, A lot of people from the mainland coming to Hawaii. I know some people won't move to Hawaii just for the bugs. Obviously, with ants, stay clean, don't leave crumbs out. Or any other thing?
There are over 40 species of ants here in Hawaii.
Okay.
Most of our ant species originate and live outside. What you see inside generally only represents 5 to 10% of what's actually there. Landscaping, so making sure your plants or your trees aren't touching the house. So if you walk around a house, you sell a lot of houses, you see where the bushes are starting to touch the house. Well, the ant doesn't know what a house is, right? So he's walking on the bush and
It's a bridge,
it's just an extension of another something that he's walking on, and now they got a bridge from where they're nesting along your house into a window. Now, oh, hey, we got food now. So they bridge the gap and they figure it out. Now they're moving from outside in. So if you want to try and reduce odds of getting ants, make sure your plants aren't touching the exterior of your house. It's probably the most common way to do it. Cleaning regularly, right? Making sure you don't have food and crumbs out. And then when you do have an ant infestation on the inside, there are certain ant species that will bud off, meaning they will create separate colonies as a defense mechanism if they feel they are being threatened. And so our natural instinct when we see an ant infestation is to get rid of them, right?
So you don't kill them all, they'll separate.
Divide and conquer. Just as a defense mechanism, their only goal in life is to survive, right?
Okay.
So you take one ant colony, and now you got 2 ant colonies. Okay. Then you have 2 ant colonies, now you have 4 ant colonies, all independent from each other. Yeah. So if one collapses, the bloodline is okay because they have other colonies. And so that's when we generally come in, is when homeowners or residents try everything they can. You know, they try over-the-counter stuff. They wipe everything down. But certain ant species are so sensitive that you take general household cleaner and try and clean where the ants are, and that's enough to trigger off a satellite colony. And so, you know, you get this full-blown infestation. We come in, and it's not something that's taken care of overnight. They might be harder to get rid of than German roaches.
Centipedes.
Centipedes? It has nothing to do with cleanliness.
So they just make their way in?
Randomly, either... Again, like American roaches, they're looking for dry ground.
Yeah.
It got too wet outside, it rained heavy, or your sprinklers are putting out too much water, so they're just looking for dry ground. Centipedes eat other insects. Yeah. And so most other insects are outside, and so that's where they want to be. They want to be outside hunting other insects. When they come inside, it's really by accident. And they're nasty, ugly-looking things that hurt.
They'll bite you, right?
Yeah, they will. They will.
Okay. Scorpions.
We have scorpions.
I don't really hear about people getting scorpions in the house.
Not often. There are pockets of scorpions in Barbers Point, Eva Beach area. BELLOWS has a lot of them. Their sting isn't much worse than centipedes here. Okay. So we don't have these Arizona-type scorpions that are impossible to kill where they make special products for. Okay. It's not generally a big problem.
Anything unique to Hawaii with bed bugs?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was hoping you say no. I hope you say no.
Bed bugs have just got to be the worst. There's nothing more gross than dealing with a bug that's a true human parasite that only eats blood. And so while anybody can get it, oftentimes if you don't have enough money, it's harder for you to get rid of it, right? Because bed bug control costs money. It's expensive.
Throw the mattress away, right? But that's not the end.
That's not the end of it. So they're called bed bugs, but they're not just in the mattress.
They're couch bugs, they're carpet bugs.
The electrical outlets, your VCR, your cameras, depending on how bad the infestation, they'll get into everything. Hawaii depends on the tourism industry. Right?
Oh,
that's our big income, that's our big money maker. And generally speaking, that's how bed bugs are moved from place to place, is traveling. You know, families in Hawaii like to have outside families stay with them. They stay in their house, they travel, they live with them, they bring bed bugs. So that's the biggest factor. Anybody can get bed bugs. Again, bed bugs they don't care who you are, they don't care how much money you make, they don't care where you're from. It's not a cleanliness or a sanitation issue. Okay. It is what it is. It's a true human parasite. They only survive on human blood.
That's great.
When I grew up, I remember seeing like black spots on the edge of my mattress or on mattresses. Most people just attributed that to mold. Kind of looked like mold. Yeah. But since bed bugs only eat blood, they only defecate blood. And so those black spots is just dried up blood that turns from red to black as it dries out. It's a true bug that will blow up overnight if not addressed. And so there's this place in Waikiki. I can't mention the building, but it was this 3-story walk-up, and this one unit had bed bugs, and we had traced this entire infestation of this entire apartment building to this one unit. And bed bugs can sense our what we exhale. So as we exhale, they sniff that out and they go, oh, that's a human around. They can also sense our body temperature, which is how they can find you in the middle of the night. You're breathing out, they smell that, then they go towards your warmth and they'll find you. So we track down the bed bug problem to this one unit. And as I walk up to this unit, right, now bed bugs are generally isolated to indoors. Like they don't want to walk around outside. That's just not how they roll. But I'm walking up to this unit and the bed bugs can start to sense me and they're starving. They're hungry. They haven't been fed in a minute. So they're starting to crawl out from under the door, which is not normal. That's just not a normal thing. And so the landlord opens up the unit and there are bed bugs everywhere. Out of a horror story, the poor gentleman who was there, he needed some help. And fortunately enough people banded together and dealt with that issue, helped him, helped the building. But he thought the same thing, right? Bed bugs, only in my bed. So they were hammering him in the bed. So he moved from the bed to the floor, to the carpet. But he had been sleeping in that spot long enough, and the bed bugs were feeding on him for so long that there was an outline of his body on the floor, on the carpet, because they're eating blood, right? They make a little prick in your skin, so you have these little droplets of blood. But he slept in the same spot all the time, and there were so many of them that there was a literal outline of blood on the floor of his body. They were in the remote controls. I went into the unit to get some of his documents that he needed. He needed his ID, his social security card. It was in a cabinet.
Did you like put on level A protection at any point?
Full protection, full bodysuit, booties, Tyvek suit. Short of supplied air, I had my respirator, but even then, right, like just there's this smell of blood that's everywhere because all these bugs, thousands of them. These guys don't infest your kitchen. That's just not what they do. You'll find onesie twosies there, but I opened the cabinet because he just told me where his documents were. So they removed him from the unit so they could take care of the unit. And I opened the cabinet where your coffee mugs and stuff are. That's where he put his documents. But I mean, there were bed bugs in the cabinet around the coffee mugs. You couldn't touch anything. Everywhere you walk was just crunch, crunch, crunch. Oh. You can't make this stuff up, man. I mean, that was bad. Maybe the worst bed bug issue I've ever seen.
I talked to real estate agents on certain parts of the mainland, and the termite inspection isn't this mandatory thing in certain places. In Hawaii, I mean, I've been at my in-laws' house and watched a gecko eating termites, just feasting on them. Those are different than ground termites, though, right? Because those are the flying ones.
I'm glad you asked that question. I'm glad you put it in that context. So the deal with termites is most people believe only one species of termite flies. So in Hawaii, you have drywood termites, and then you have ground termites, right?
Okay.
But ground termites, absolutely 100% fly. So they will come out of the ground, they will come out of a tree stump, they will come out of whatever wood they're infesting, and they will fly, just like drywood termites. Okay. And so both species fly. Ground termites tend to swarm in larger numbers, like biblical proportion. I remember playing basketball when many years ago, and lighter. Right?
Me too.
But I mean, we play at the park, and during the summers, the lamps at night would just be clouded with termites.
Oh, those are termites?
Those are termites.
Okay.
The big clouds of termites, generally speaking, those are ground termites. Your drywood termites swarm in smaller numbers, not as much as the ground termites, but both species fly. Ground termites generally are not as effective as starting new colonies when they fly. Drywood termites are super effective. Drywood termites are the termites you fumigate houses for. Ground termites are the termites you bait or you inject stuff in the ground.
Hawaii has a lot of HOAs, right? So there's communities, your outside's covered, your landscaping's covered. And sometimes if there's termites, even to, say, a CPR house, so it looks like a single-family house, but part of a condominium property regime, CPR. Sometimes termites will be covered if they're ground termites, because they assume that to be their problem, because they're in the ground all over the place. But then I guess like the drywood ones, though, the association wouldn't cover those. Now that's a broad statement. every association is different.
Ground termites you can actually do proactive, preventative treatments for.
Okay.
So if your house or your property or whatever you want to protect doesn't have ground termites, there's good technology today that really, really works to protect your house from ground termites.
Okay.
Drywood termites, the ones you see the big giant tarps over the houses for, there's nothing you can do that's of any good use to prevent your house from getting drywood termites.
Can't get a bunch of geckos and keep them all around your house?
Nope. You know, we joke in the pest control industry, the people who do termite work, there are two types of houses in Hawaii: those who have termites and those that will get termites.
Yeah.
Either way, you know, bed bugs only eat blood, termites only eat cellulose or wood. Right? And so if that's their only source of diet, then they will seek it. It's a survival game. And so they'll get in. There's nothing you can do. When you have them, address it, deal with it, and then move on.
With termites, usually I notice in my investing and just in selling houses and buying houses for clients, usually they're like on trim. Is that stuff easier to eat? Like our biggest fear as homeowners is that like the studs are gonna have termites. Is it just that those are harder to get to that they don't eat those and the trim is easier? Because usually it's like a window seal on the outside or like the stuff on the outside that I could just pay $50, $80 and replace it, and not the bones of the house. So people always say the bones. Is that true in your experience?
Yes and no. So in our experience, and again, kind of a general statement is most trims or window framing, oftentimes they don't use treated wood for those areas.
That's why.
So those areas become easy money, right?
Oh, okay.
And then they are the most exterior part of the house. And so most houses have drywall first. And so if a drywood termite wanted to get to the studs or the wood behind the drywall, they got to figure out how to get past the drywall and into there. Your framework on your windows and doors, I mean, that's the first part. That's the most exterior part of the home. So it's the easy money.
Once they start eating that one, they're not like us where they're like, oh, we want entree, side dishes, dessert. They're just like, okay, we'll eat this one till it's hollow, right?
If left unchecked,
Yeah.
eventually you'll have problems.
Yeah.
But if you're vigilant and diligent and deal with it, you generally shouldn't. They will be content with that until there's no more food, and then they'll look for other food sources. Okay. Now, they may mostly be content with that and send some other scouts to go look for new food sources. You just have to be vigilant with it and keep an eye on it. And when you start seeing evidence of them, then you start the planning process. When you start to see the grainy sand type substances,
yes,
that's the drywood termites. Okay. Once you start seeing that, it's not panic time, but it's time to start planning. Okay, we're going to have to deal with this issue. Let's get somebody in here, look at it, and then we can figure out what our timeline is. Okay. The house isn't on fire. There is no, you have to do something tomorrow. Don't be fooled by somebody saying, hey, look, you got to get on this right away. Right. It's something that needs to be addressed. Start the planning process. Okay. You've got months, at worst case scenario to kind of look at it. Very rarely is a drywood termite problem so bad that you have to do something right away.
But if I'm putting on my investor hat and you find a house with problems and you're going to buy it for cash or whatever, an investor looks at that and says, okay, so there's termites, so we'll treat it, we'll tent it, it's going to cost X amount, and then it's done. So
the houses that we see that are infested with drywood termites where it's that bad, it's because they've gone years without addressing it. Right. So if you see it and you put together a plan, 6 months, a year even, right? And from the sales world, nobody wants to hear that, right? You want to drive sales, but in reality, you got some time. Just plan on doing it. Budget it, figure it out, figure out what it's going to cost, and put a plan together and plan to deal with it down the road. In a testament to the efficiency of drywood termites. So drywood termites don't need a separate food and water source. They get all the water they need from the humidity of the wood, right? Yeah. But because there's not a lot of water in the wood, after they process the wood and they pull out the water from the wood, right before they poop that dropping out, so those droppings are poop, right? If you look closely under a microscope or a magnifying glass, there are 6 indentations on each dropping. Each one of those indentations is the marking of one of the sphincter muscles. So the butt muscle, right? So as it's pooping out, it squeezes so tight to draw the last bit of liquid out of that piece of wood. And so it takes a sip as it's pooping. And so that's why you have those 6 very distinct indentations. That's butt muscles.
I don't see them as a pest, but what about gecko?
If you got geckos, you got some natural pest control going on. Geckos only eat bugs,
Okay.
right? And so you see them hanging around by the outside lights or by your lights when the bugs fly around. They'll sit there and just start nabbing guys all day. If you want to reduce gecko populations in your house and you have a lot of geckos, start to reduce the pest population.
Okay.
So as the pest population reduces, so does the geckos. Hawaii has a lot of things that are unique in that we're technically a tropical rainforest, right? We're a tropical environment. It doesn't get too cold. So all of these insects and rodents can thrive all year long. The predominant rat, we have two general species of rat. You have roof rats and Norway rats. The dominant species is the roof rat. Okay?
Because they like to be in the roof?
Because they're biologically and genetically designed to be acrobats. They're designed to be high flyers. They bounce around from tree to tree. You know, these guys will drop 3 stories and land on their feet and walk away from a standing prone position. Okay, so put this in perspective of your house. If you have anything within 6 feet, so if you have a tree that you figure, cut it back 6 feet, we're good, right? But at 6 feet from the standing position, a rat can jump and land on your roof, straight across. Right, these guys are like animal Olympians, right? So you got to cut stuff back further than 6 feet. If you have things overhanging your house, the rats will climb up in the trees and jump down. Roof rats have super long tails. If you take their tail and you put it over their back, it's a little bit longer than their body. They got pointy noses, and their ears stick out, and so they can kind of like look and keep watch. And
they're that stereotypical Master Splinter, huh?
They are. I mean, they can run around and they can high wire. I mean, sometimes, like in downtown, you can see them running across electrical lines or phone lines. They're made for that. Norway rats are ground-dwelling rats. They have blunt noses that are good for digging, short tails so it doesn't get stuck in stuff. Their ears are inside their head so their dirt doesn't get inside. They're made for digging. We have some of them here, but the dominant species is the roof rat. If we didn't have houses, they would be eating fruits and nuts hanging in the trees. But since we have houses, they'll jump in. They gnaw at stuff. Their teeth never stop growing, so they constantly have to gnaw at things. They'll get in and they'll start hunting for food or nesting material inside your house.
So keep your stuffing tubes stuffed, the soffit vents, keep the mesh on those.
Any hardware store sells them. They make really good rectangular, solid metal, aluminum vent covers, but they generally cover 3 or 4 of your circular covers.
Okay.
And those are much harder for the rats to get through than the ones that come in place. Those will rust down as the home naturally expands and contracts. They'll pop out and the rats will come in through there. The piping vents on the roof that vent out your piping lines, rats will jump down into those things and chew their way through the piping. It's plastic usually, right? PVC.
It's PVC. We just moved our sink, our sink is in the same place, but there was a wall, so that vent was right there. We demoed that wall and moved that pipe way over, and I learned about these pipes. Why is it just an open pipe on the roof of the house? It doesn't seem like a good idea to me.
It should be covered. Like
they're just not made that way though, yeah?
They're not. And so even when we cover it, we'll take galvanized mesh, cut it to exact size, and then secure it over it. So you need it to vent, right? So it doesn't stink inside your house.
Right.
But you also don't want rats jumping down in there. So what the rats will do is they'll go down and they'll stop, and then they'll start chewing through the pipe. And that pipe runs, now they're stuck. Your pipe runs to your attic, and that's usually where they end up chewing out of the pipe, and now they have free reign. Once they're in your attic, they have free reign into your walls, you know, wherever they want, they have free reign to.
Real estate pro tip on the rats is in everywhere, because it's an inexpensive and for the most part good way to do plumbing, is this thing called PESTS, or Monoblock is a brand. Okay. So the plumbing that's the red and blue, sometimes gray, but more commonly the red and blue. They're like plastic tubes, almost like someone unraveled a long thing of like hula hoop. A little bit more flexible though. And the hot and cold water run through that. And then some of them have a manifold. So that's the brand Monoblock. There's a manifold so you can shut off the kitchen and shut off this area. That type of plumbing is great for a ton of reasons. Now, I'm not a plumber, all right, but I flipped a house, and this was the issue. If you have a rodent problem and you have that kind of plumbing, well, rat poison, as I understand it, makes them really thirsty. this plumbing, they know there's water in there, and they'll gnaw off the plumbing to the point of their gums bleeding and everything. And so now you have a leak. So this house that we bought, it was abandoned previously, and almost guaranteed what happened was the rats ate through the plumbing. So if you have anything other than copper, I don't know if they would eat through copper, but the rats can eat through plastic plumbing is the main point, right?
Yeah.
And if they're thirsty because they're poisoned or whatever the reason may be, they'll like sacrifice their teeth to get through that plumbing, right?
Yes and no. So
Okay.
I'll kind of correct urban legend.
Okay, please do.
So rat poisons don't make rats thirsty. That came from pest controllers. That came from people pitching that as a point of sale.
Okay.
Like the rat will eat the poison, then they'll go outside and they'll get thirsty and look for water and die outside. Rats are like us. They need a food source and they need a water source.
Okay.
And so the fact that they're looking for water is inconsequential. That's just nature. They're just looking for water.
Okay.
It's kind of true because most rat poisons aren't activated until they drink water. But you're just waiting on their natural process to go get water.
Okay.
Now, they will absolutely chew the heck out of plastic piping.
Yeah.
And either to get water or just to chew on it.
Right.
Like
right.
remember their teeth never stop growing, so
They eat electrical wire too, right?
they'll eat an electrical wire. I read a stat a couple of years ago that said the #1 cause for natural fires in Hawaii homes was rats chewing through electrical wires in your dry attic. Oftentimes in your attic, those electrical wires are just kind of stapled to wood. So rats are generally blind. They're blind up to about a foot in front of them.
Oh.
And so they move by the feel of their fur and their tail, and then by muscle memory. It's like dialing a phone number that you dial all the time. Oftentimes you don't even have to look at it, right? You're dialing. Rats the same way. They make a path. They know this is the path. They go along that path, and along that path, oftentimes they just follow piping lines, things where they can brush their body up against.
Okay.
The edges of your wall, which is why you see traps often on the edges of things, because that's where rats like to run.
How about in Hawaii? We have, a lot of people will love a house because it has an avocado tree, banana trees, lychee or lychee. That's a beautiful thing about Hawaii, right? We have all these great fruit trees. But if you have those trees in your yard, you're probably more likely to have insects and rats and stuff, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, you're more likely to have all sorts of flies, fruit flies, roaches, ants. It's sweet things, right?
Yeah.
Rats love that stuff. Rats love avocados. And remember, they're naturally, if your house didn't exist, they'd be hanging out in the trees anyway.
Right.
And so they sell metal bands you can wrap around the bottoms of your trees, around the trunks to stop rats from climbing up. You got to do it right. If you don't do it perfectly flush, and the rats can either scoot under it or jump over it. So the general rule of thumb is rat can squeeze through a hole the size of a quarter, and mice the size of a nickel.
Nickel.
Yeah.
Bruh.
10 feet per second. They'll run 10 feet per second. So oftentimes when you feel like a ghost just passed, could be a rat, man. Could be a mouse. Blink of an eye.
It's the worst video we've ever done.
And this is one of the grossest facts about rats and mice. Rats and mice don't have the ability to control their bladder. Right?
Oh.
So they drink and they just pee. They have no desire to pee. It just comes out. So when rats are infesting your house, like everywhere they walk, there's just dribbling urine all over the place. And they don't mean to do it. It's just happening. They got to poop. It's just flowing out. When it's time to poop, it's just coming out.
I just moved into a house, and the neighbors came after and was like, "Did you know about the ticks?" I was like, "No, what?" They're like, "There are thousands. There's like houses, like 10 houses away had ticks because of this house." Dog owners in Hawaii, a lot of times, the dog just stays outside. I think that's more not normal and warmer climate.
Again, Hawaii is it's a vector for a lot of different insects because of our tropical environment. So if we deal with the flea and tick issue, fleas and ticks, they need an animal host.
Okay.
And so when you're talking about flea and tick control, first off, you got to deal with the animal first. And make sure your animal, whether it's a cat or a dog, is on some sort of flea and tick treatment program.
Okay.
So consult your vet, do whatever you do, whether it's frontline or whatever you do, deal with the fleas and ticks on the animal.
Okay.
Now, fleas and ticks will fall off, and you'll find them in areas that the animals frequent. Now, they don't mean to fall off. They actually want to stay on the animal, but those areas generally then have to be addressed by a professional who will come in and specifically target fleas and ticks in those areas. Again, treat the animal first,
Okay.
then treat your yard, treat your property, and make sure all the ones that have fallen off are dead. If you do that, you'll have relative success in staving off flea and tick issues from the neighbors. Now, if you're sandwiched between two people who aren't dealing with fleas and ticks with their animals, like you'll be forced to be on some sort of regular program to keep the fleas and ticks at bay.
It sounds like I don't have to really worry about the ticks coming back at my house too much because we don't have an animal.
Yeah.
Right.
If you don't have an animal,
But the people before we bought it, they had an animal.
a lot of people complain about being bit by fleas, and fleas will bite us. But they can't survive on us. They need an animal host to survive on.
Okay. We don't have mosquitoes. Like, I was born in Florida, and then I was stationed on the East Coast and Southeast. Mosquitoes there are crazy. Our mosquitoes and mine are not as bad, but my wife always gets bitten. 10 of us could be hanging out, and she'll get lit up. Why is that? And then, why in Hawaii, like, is there anything, like, what's a good way to keep the mosquitoes away?
You can break up mosquitoes into daytime biters and nighttime biters.
They have shifts?
They have shifts. they have the day walkers and then the vampires, right?
Okay.
And so the daytime biters are a little bit easier to get rid of. Generally speaking, the daytime biters are usually breeding near your house. And so standing water is their breeding source. So if you can get rid of most of that, then you can get rid of most of the daytime biters.
Okay.
Now your nighttime biters, if you have nighttime biters, you got problems because those guys will come from 3 to 5 miles away.
What?
And so, obviously you can't deal with somebody else's problem 3 to 5 miles away. They will come, they'll land, they'll feed. Who they feed on is the luck of a draw.
So a lot of times people get bit at like twilight. Are those like nighttime biters coming?
Those are nighttime biters coming. They're coming to feed. In the pest control world, flying insects are the hardest to get rid of.
Right.
So any insect that flies as its primary mode of transportation isn't affected like the other bugs. Roaches and ants crawl most of the time, and so you can put pesticide barriers down so when they crawl over that barrier, they're affected. But mosquitoes are different, right? They're flying, they're landing, they're flying, they're landing. One, you got to get rid of all the sitting, standing water and start to break the life cycle. If there's sitting, standing water that you can't get rid of, like you live near a marsh or a canal or it just gets too wet outside of your area or in certain spots within your property, there are things that we can do to that's safe for the water that will kill the mosquitoes in that breeding zone.
Okay.
Most mosquito treatments, though, are more management than get rid of type things.
Okay.
So you can spray landing surfaces, right? So if I'm treating for ants and roaches, I'm treating the ground generally 3 feet out, 3 feet up. Right? With mosquitoes, you would treat the bushes. You would treat a little bit higher on the house. You would treat the patio. You would treat the outside walls. When the mosquitoes come and land and rest, hopefully you have treated a landing area. They just launched a new product. It's something called Into Care. I'm trying not to plug anything, but it's in the pest control world. Every year they try and launch stuff that's a remake of something that was last year that they changed the name, right? Like pharmaceutical drugs, right? All the same thing, but they launched something that actually really works. It's basically a bucket of water with a special product in it. And so what the bucket does is it incentivizes those nighttime biters to go inside and breed in this bucket.
Yeah.
But whatever they breed, the eggs that they drop all become sterile.
Okay.
And so those eggs never hatch, and that starts to break the life cycle.
Okay.
And then as that mosquito lands in the breeding area, it picks up an insect growth regulator, which you mentioned for roaches earlier, right? And so this insect growth regulator stops the mosquito from breeding, and everywhere the mosquito lands, it puts a little bit of this growth regulator on it.
I like it.
So when other mosquitoes come, right, they're going to land in similar areas. The idea is that they pick up some of that mosquito insect growth regulator, and it breaks the life cycle bigger. So it's one of the few things that you can get relief from nighttime biting mosquitoes.
People moving here, should they be afraid of bugs? Or should they not move to paradise because we have bugs?
It's a small price to pay to live in paradise. Like it's absolutely gorgeous. It's beautiful here. Not just the weather, not just the environment, but the people, right? There's people like us that will help mitigate those issues. It's a super small price to pay to live in paradise. When it's time for professional help, try not to self-medicate, right? Let the professionals come in and do their job. Oftentimes it'll be cheaper than trying to do it yourself because you don't have access to the same stuff that we do, or you don't have access at least to the same pricing that we do. So we can do things a little bit more efficiently for you.
So I promised a story about my own cockroach story. I have many, but the one that my family always tells is I was talking to my auntie on the phone. I'm probably 15 years old or something. And this cockroach runs across the TV screen. I'm like, Auntie, there's a cockroach, there's a cockroach. So I start spraying Lysol at the TV. I might have broke the TV, I don't know. Because I couldn't find it, it wouldn't come back out. I was like, okay, I'll get it out. And then I had a bucket, like I was gonna trap it. And then when my dad comes home, he can get it. And it kept going. And eventually I saw it run across the screen again. And it was the same TV commercial. You know where I'm going? Yeah. So like Termites, one of these, they had
it was Termites or Orkin, one of those.
Yeah, one of these companies, which you should never support because I hate them. No. But they had this
Buy local.
Yeah, buy local, support Hawaii businesses. They had this commercial where it looked like a roach was on the screen, and I was far away and I was in the kitchen. So my parents came home, they're like, what is this smell? Spraying the whole living room with Lysol, which is a horrible idea anyway. And there was never a roach. It was just the commercial.
Biggest mistake people moving to Oahu make concerning pest control. Biggest mistake they make is believing that there are only giant corporations out there that do pest control.
Yeah.
There are very good local companies that do solid work. Yeah. Not just Pest Tech. You know, I'll put a plug into my industry. There are good small businesses that love what they do. Like they enjoy it. I talked with you at Walmart because I love this stuff, right? I love hearing your story and then kind of giving you the best tips possible. Yeah. Some of these other companies will try their hardest to sell you, even though you already bought stuff to take care of it yourself. They don't care about you. They want to make the sale. Truly, the inefficiencies in some of these mainland approaches is the culture of customer service. Like, if you have a problem, our culture is, I'm going to help you get rid of that problem. I committed. I'm going to follow through on my word. I'm going to take care of you. Some of these other places, they'll duck, dodge, dive, they'll do the dodgeball thing, right? And just avoid dealing with the issue because they got your money already. Local people, local companies, we really care about the community and taking care of you. It's not just a money game for us. Yeah, we're in it to make business, to move commerce, right? Everyone should make money. But there's aloha with that. I thought of something that I didn't ask, and that's jealousy windows. From a structural standpoint, like jealousies, generally speaking, don't always seal shut. The sides of them have gaps, right, leading to the house. The metal tracks, the windows don't always touch, or the glasses don't always touch. So yeah, I mean, when you're talking about pest proofing, you try and eliminate as many ways possible for pests to move from the outside inside. And if you have inefficient windows, whether it's jealousies or just janky windows, then you got problems then. I hope you enjoyed the conversation with Ian. Make sure you subscribe, leave comments below, reach out to us. You're moving to Hawaii. We want to help you. We can set you up on a pest control plan with Ian if that's a big issue for you when you're buying your house. Ask your questions in the comments below, and we'll make sure we get back to you with answers, guaranteed. If you're renting, you can still take action and make sure it's okay with your landlord, but get the pest taken care of. So we'll see you guys in the next video.